daughter I've been working on.
Right, welcome back to the Health, Wealth and Sex podcast. What are we on now? Is it episode 10?
Yeah, 10 I'm going for.
Episode 10. So we're looking at optimizing life, enjoying lifestyle bodybuilding, even the potential to enjoy professional bodybuilding, or if you take bodybuilding very seriously, this is about mental health, financial wealth, emotional well-being, physical well-being, and maybe a little bit of education as well about how we do things within the world of physique development. And today we thought we'd talk about something like sustainable performance enhancing drug use and TRT use in lifestyle males. So what's really necessary to get the best possible outcomes in that kind of lifestyle space, with all of its limiting factors, because there will be many, all the kind of sacrifices and compromises that you would have to kind of issue to really pursue bodybuilding full time, push it, and therefore even create the demand for higher doses of drugs. So this is, can we enhance lifestyles with performance enhancing drugs, and can that be sustainable? So what do you think?
It's that tricky one, isn't it? I think with all of these things, guys need to, or I'd like to see more of guys really thinking this through before they begin anything. Because a lot of the people, maybe a bit of a tangent here, I encounter have already doing weird and wonderful things that don't really make any obvious sense. And I'm never quite convinced, not everyone, but quite a few people have put any time or thought into a plan, a sustainable plan, something that's going to bring benefit to their life, something that they can run medium to long term, and then they're necessarily sure what their goals are. I think approaching it with a degree of cognition and intelligence, you'd like to think that people will try to do that. So, again, what am I after? Can I sustain this? How am I going to track my health markers? What do I want from all of this? So I suppose that would be my first opening thought.
Yeah, and probably age is a factor here, because a lot of this is most appropriate to older males, right? Younger males might be listening, thinking about PED and TRT use. The first thing we should say is, do you want to have kids? This should be a big consideration for you. And if you think you don't, what if you end up with a partner who you love and don't want to leave, but does want kids, right? And you can't give them. So I think fertility is something to think about.
Be mindful of the fact of how you also feel. Like 20-year-old Alex and maybe 20-year-old Tom is very different from 40-year-old Alex.
And
you don't stay static.
And while we can take, neuroprotective, cardioprotective, and renal protective drugs that act to some degree as a prophylactic to offset the risk, there is absolutely health risks involved in long-term steroid use, particularly in higher doses, right? And the more you take, the more likely those things are. Now, if you're taking steroids for 2 decades with unchecked blood pressure, that's where you're going to have kidney issues, lose a kidney maybe. If you are going to expose yourself to trenbolone and nandrolone chronically, you're going to have a very difficult life generally in terms of relationships, socializing, just mental health and well-being as well. You won't feel well, you feel shit. So there's a little bit of education behind this, and maybe we can offer some today, sort of not necessarily the correct line, because we're all individual, but maybe some guidelines about where you should be looking at, or what kind of performance enhancing drugs you should be looking at, regardless of dose. Although here with bodybuilding, there's always been that kind of blast and cruise, so never really coming down low enough that it could be considered TRT, and also going extremely high in the doses, usually for purpose, like a bodybuilding competition, or in an off-season scenario, and they're really trying to put on size and so on. I think this is more a sort of a subtle, it's almost TRT to cruise. So there may be
TRT
times,
plus, isn't it? Yeah.
yeah, there may be times when you are taking more than your TRT, so you're above the normal range, but only a necessary amount, a slight amount that a lot of pro bodybuilders would just call a cruise. And then majority of the time spent actually at sort of TRT. And I don't recommend just dropping into the mid-range of the spectrum. Why not be on the higher end of normal there? And also probably a little side note that what is normal for your age now, and normal for this year, or the current population, will be much lower than what it was in, say, the 1950s, because we have so many sort of xenoestrogens, parabens, things that we're exposed to as males that lower our testosterone levels. So that will affect the average normal, and it wouldn't have done.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have done 80 years ago. So comparing that data is quite interesting.
Why would you? Here's one for you. For anybody who's considering going on like a TRT plus regimen or whatever, why would they consider doing that? What would be the benefits? Let's say, 40-year-old male is hearing this and he's thinking, well, go on. I'm understanding that I'm going to, use said compounds. Why would I do that? How is it going to improve my life? What am I going to get from it if I do it right?
Yeah. So let's say, first of all, they've explored the natural opportunities, which are health supplements where required, with creatine if they're trying to build muscle, dietary, and that they're in a good training pattern. So they're able to build muscle, and build muscle in the right ways and in the right places. So they have that level of knowledge. If we're talking about physique development, because even absent of going to the gym, there'd be huge benefits to what we're talking about. So what would be the benefits? Well, let's say you do your blood work and your testosterone's on the higher end of normal. What would be the benefits in taking more testosterone?
Yeah.
And would there be side effects? Well, there will be side effects past a certain dose, and that'll be individual to everybody. And you will probably experience elevated blood pressure, so that would need to be managed. However, you'd see body composition improvements in drive and libido. However, if you're not really going to make the most of like food, training, sleep, and if those things aren't lining up, then TRT is probably going to be optimal. You can only build muscle at such a rate, right? And steroids are just one driver of
the vector, isn't it? It's one vector.
So they contribute to, but steroids in the absence of food will only do so much, and then nothing will happen, right? So you'll build. I mean, fuck, in the absence of training, you take enough, you're going to build muscle, But in the absence of food, probably not much. With lots of food, probably quite a bit more. We can agree this.
Well, we've all seen the quote unquote gym rat, of which I'm one, who takes a shocking amount of drugs, but yet is tiny. You say, "What's your diet?" and they're eating no food.
Yeah, I'm often surprised when guys tell me they're on gear, and then
be
surprised at how much. I'm like, fucking hell.
Really?
Like, it's been a while since anybody asked me like if I'm natural, and this is a good thing, right?
Yeah.
It comes up to me and says, "Are you natural?" Like fucking hell, come on.
Really?
I'd be questioning. I'd be like,
you'd be upset by that, wouldn't
you? Yeah. Yeah. So I think first of all, it's like, do you actually have like a need for more drive, more motivation, a higher libido? Like, does that kind of fit?
Is that a good thing?
Yeah. when you're already on like the higher end of normal, and then it's like, you're really going to make use of this additional testosterone in your body for your goals, whatever they may be. But let's be realistic here. There's no reason to take more than testosterone replacement unless you're trying to put more muscle on.
Yeah.
Really no reason at all. Drive, libido, all of that stuff plateaus, you know. So another aspect would be like, does your blood work show that you're low in testosterone?
Yeah.
Now, you'll already be at risk of a shorter life. So at this point, TRT becomes life extending.
Yes.
Because of all the health issues that crop up with low testosterone levels. So increased risk of cardiovascular disease, for example. And steroids are associated with increased risk of cardiovascular disease. So this is actually, you know, we're not talking about super physiological use, but actually the replacement here is the healthy option. So there's that consideration that it might actually be necessary for your longevity. That is going to give you an appropriate amount of drive and libido, as it were, when you were younger, because all these things are, and you might not be depressed anymore. In fact,
Yes.
highly likely that the fact that you're depressed and subdued and not feeling yourself is your low testosterone levels. So it might give you yourself back, your preferred self, or you might like the way you are. In that case, don't fuck with it. All right, so those are probably like the main sort of TRT benefits. And then other performance enhancing compounds that we can use are really sustainable. Growth hormone,
Yep.
which is super accessible now, as you can get topical growth hormone patches, which is a great overnight release. You're going to get fat mobilization. You're going to get hair, skin benefits. So yeah, that's quite a good one.
Would you add a DHT to the testosterone, or would you simply, for the lifestyle guy, focus on?
Not at TRT levels. Now,
No.
going up from there, I'd say once you approach 300 milligrams of testosterone, if you want to go higher than that, then you'd probably use Primobolan. I think that would be the smartest choice, because it's the most benign compound you can use. You don't need more estrogen.
No.
You don't need, I mean, it's just going to keep you sort of balanced in the right trajectory. So the reason for taking more has to be that you want to put on more muscle mass,
Yes.
which has to mean that you're eating in a calorie surplus and you're training sufficiently hard, so sleeping enough. So there's got to be a demand for it, and then you just pick the compound that builds muscle the most effectively with the least side effects.
Yes.
Be Primobolan. So you're not looking for more estrogen, you're not looking for more sort of drive from testosterone or any of those things. You've got like a nice stable hormonal level, and that wouldn't really affect that.
Yeah. So okay, here I am. I'm the natural male who's come to you. I do want more drive. I do want more focus. I'm hitting testosterone. I mean, blood work will depend my dose. Would you say that's correct?
Yeah.
And then I'd add growth hormone on top of that. Pre-bed?
Yeah, so let's say it's just pure TRT, growth hormone. Yeah, I think I mean, it was cost dependent, right?
Yes.
No point in doing 1 unit a day, because that's just shutting down your body's natural production of about 1 unit a day. So we want 2 units as a minimum before, otherwise there's no point.
Yes.
Or the topical patch, which is 1.5 units.
Yeah.
Okay, so, and again, like females, they'll produce maybe a bit less. Everybody's individual. But let's say 2 units, it's kind of your bottom end. You'll see increased benefits up to a point that you see side effects like carpal tunnel syndrome and swollen hands and things like that. You'll see benefits increasing with dose, to be honest.
Yes.
You'll be leaner, you'll be more muscular, hair, skin, nails, you know, all the growth factors. But at some point, that dose will be intolerant, and normally find that to be around about 6 to 8 IUs.
Okay.
So again, yeah, split dosing generally. But if I was going to do single dosing, I would do it before bed. Okay, it peaks like 4 to 6 hours. That's your peak sort of fat mobilization,
Okay.
and it's in your system for another. I think it's in your system a total of about 20 hours.
Okay.
Doing all of its bits and pieces. So it makes sense to me to mobilize as much fat overnight as possible, for body composition reasons, and calories in, calories out, all that kind of stuff. I still think that if you mobilize fat overnight and then perform fasted activity in the morning, you have a leaner physique overall.
Yes.
Now, if your diet is predominantly protein and carbohydrates and fairly low in fats, the carbohydrates going to like demand for training, supporting your muscle mass, protein going for repair. It's hard for your body to convert protein and carbohydrate into fat. So even in a surplus. So for me, it's more likely that if you're in a small surplus and you're following that dietary approach, you've got anabolics and growth hormone nailed down. I think that it's very likely that the majority of your calorie surplus will go to building muscle and nothing else. And that's why we can stay lean while growing.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's one
Well,
aspect.
that's nice and simple so far. So TRT plus ish dose testosterone, growth hormone in there, and that will. And again, it's important to point out to people. I don't think anyone's under any illusion that's not going to suddenly make you pro bodybuilder worthy, obviously.
Well, to be
But it
honest with
will.
you, actually, just to counter that completely,
Oh, go
if
on.
you take 300 milligram of testosterone and you fucking start looking like a pro bodybuilder, you probably will be a pro bodybuilder.
Yes,
Because
yes, yes. I
you,
accept that. Yeah.
lucky fucker, are a hyper responder. And everybody has this idea that the pros take.
Oh, I know.
You can't take it. Trust me. Like I've tried to do 3 grams of gear. You can't take it. It's just not sustainable. You know,
Yeah.
put all that oil in you, right? It's just you can't tolerate it. It's just not happening. They are growing off a gram of gear,
Yeah.
right? And they might be pushing 2, which again isn't sustainable. You probably do that in preps, but
Yeah.
that'd be very tiresome. And there'd be lumps all over your body and all sorts of stuff. So
But the genetic elite again, that I think that's the
yeah.
genetics again
Now,
is the weird
now
thing in
they
bodybuilding
probably
people
do
overlook.
crank. They probably do crank the growth hormone. Like,
Yes.
I think that's a significant aspect because these people financially that are able to crank growth hormone with absolutely every reason to do it
Yes.
will put up with side effects as well, in pursuit of their goals because they're constantly uncomfortable anyway.
Yes. Yeah. They get
That's
used
life,
to
isn't
living there, don't they?
it? Yeah. So if you are a normal responder, subpar responder, whatever, I would imagine that will show in your blood work. First and foremost is your net testosterone levels, or whatever you're taking will be interpreted that way usually.
Yeah.
So your net testosterone levels are going to come in and they're going to be, below what you'd expect from TRT, or bang on, or pretty good, and lucky you. Another aspect could be simply that you have really high SHBG. So you might not have
Yes.
low testosterone, but you might have the symptoms of it, in which case I wouldn't advocate testosterone replacement therapy. You've got lots and lots of testosterone being produced, but it's just bound. I would just take Proviron and that'd be it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
still take growth hormone. What else? So absolutely an angiotensin receptor blocker if you're going to go TRT plus and beyond. So that's going to be, as I said, neuroprotective, cardioprotective, renal protective. And for me, there's quite an argument for that as a health ancillary generally, unless you've
Yes. So
got
what
lower
the
blood pressure.
telmisartan? Is that one of
I
your
like
favorites?
I like the neuroprotective aspects. I think, look, it's not on the market yet, but retatrutide, which will be the next generation of semaglutide, Ozempic, which is on the market, suppresses all of your appetite regulating hormones and reduces the risk of cardiovascular disease. And I think it was something like 25%. The shares in the company went through the roof when the study was published. You can get it from China at the moment in peptide form. That's not being regulated. I've actually ordered some, so I'm going to try it.
Yes, yeah.
At some point, when appetite's high enough. Still not maybe there. It's getting there. It's taken me 4.5 months of prep. Like appetite was
finally feeling it.
Well, they were starting to pick up before loading, and then I did fucking 3,000 grams of carbs in 2 days.
And that was it.
I haven't really wanted to eat since, so I've been
put yourself on food.
Like after Christmas, isn't it? It's really easy to die.
Yeah.
Christmas. Right. So yeah, no, that's a bit of a segue there. I sort of lost my I've lost my thread.
So you're talking about the Chinese peptide, yeah?
Retatrutide. So I mean that's going to
you're saying that's going to be used
in the Western population, right? Then we've cured pretty much obesity and cardiovascular disease, right? Cancer's really not far behind. Yeah. So our generation, our age, unless we fuck ourselves up, we have an accident or whatever, the likelihood is we'll live long enough to move into cognitive decline.
Yes.
So neurotoxicity, which should be of particular interest to bodybuilders because steroids are neurotoxic, just like MDMA. Some of you may have experienced that neurotoxicity. The antioxidants that we can take that are going to offset that neurotoxicity, so an antioxidant for your brain, are for me at the moment an essential part of my daily supplementation. That means high dosing melatonin.
Yep.
I take 10 milligrams a day of. Oh, no, I take 20 milligrams a day of melatonin these days.
Okay.
And the telmisartan. And the more I understand neurotoxicity and compounds of supplements that will offset that, the more I lean into them. As I said, I've got on my desk, I've got CBD, L-theanine, L-tyrosine, NAC, lots and lots of, there's just this focus on kind of brain health, which is a bit abstract from bodybuilding normally.
I was going to say it's been
I am more stupid now, 10 years into steroid use, than I was. I know I am.
Oh, really? You can actually notice that?
I'm less articulate. Yeah, I've definitely become stupid.
You're not stupid enough to know that. I always feel what's the word I'm looking for? I quite admire people who are so stupid that they don't know they're stupid. I always think, that I'm smart enough to know that I'm stupid.
They're generally place happy. To be. They're generally happy, but
yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I'm smart enough to know I'm fucking up.
Having an IQ is important.
Yes, and protecting it, and I think
big biceps are important.
Yeah, well, absolutely. It's interesting in a way to see some older bodybuilders, and I use the word interesting, sad maybe, who have hammered things like tren and the nandrolones, and to see them almost a bit punch drunk.
They're like old acid heads.
Yes, yeah. It's well, you get to see firsthand the the decline cognitively that lifestyle or that lifestyle unchecked can lead towards.
Yeah. So for me, there's it's not just performance enhancing, but something like melatonin in your daily regime, neuroprotector, or an antioxidant, also promotes sleep quality. Unless for some reason it doesn't agree with you, I would consider that performance enhancing. You can improve your sleep and cognitive function there, or at least maintain your cognitive function. We've got obviously nootropics on the table, things like modafinil and stuff like that, but I find them generally unsustainable. to use. So
I quite like modafinil on a needs basis and almost microdosing it. Like
yeah, I know
again,
you do.
yeah, I know a bit of a microdoser. I've had that phase, but I
This,
don't find I naturally find I don't end up using it every day. Like that just naturally occurs that weekends will be off or holidays will be off.
I mean, it's
But I
prescribed
don't.
for narcolepsy, and they do
Yeah.
6 days on, 1 day off.
Right.
Uh,
Okay. Interesting.
yeah, and they sleep for a day. Uh, the thing is, it's a dopamine agonist, right? So it increases the amount of dopamine your body's producing, but from where? So I think a good recover, like your body needs L-tyrosine, for example, to make dopamine.
Mm,
So if you're kind of chronically getting dopamine hits, like I absolutely would, I mean, I supplement with L-tyrosine, social media, everything that's going on, that kind of dopamine burnout, that inability to produce enough dopamine. So you're looking for more, stacking things together to try and get some dopamine. You get
yes.
less and less back, and online shopping, all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So, I think essentially it doesn't aid with dopamine seeking behaviors, but infrequent usage, maybe megadosing L-tyrosine with exposure, wouldn't be a bad idea. So yeah, absolutely can be used, and I don't agree with sustainably.
Do
Um,
you have much experience of adaptogens, things like ashwagandha or rhodiola?
yeah,
I've got my
really,
views on them.
really fucking feel shit with ashwagandha.
Yeah. I
Like,
tend to find that these
but my recovery is
herbs.
no better. My
No.
None of my recovery markers, which I track meticulously, improve with CBD or with ashwagandha. Now, with CBD in a high enough dose, 100 milligrams, I have a more relaxed day. I take it in the
Yeah.
morning. So that placebo or otherwise doesn't matter if I'm
Mm.
in a more relaxed state, which is tracked. um, yeah, the aura ring can track whether you're relaxed or not. If I spend more time in a relaxed and restorative state, then fine. Whether that's because I took something that makes me think I'm relaxed,
Exactly.
something that makes me relaxed to be.
Placebo is a wonderful thing. You know what I mean? It shouldn't be overlooked or nose turned up on it.
Yeah, but given my inability to achieve a state of relaxation most of the time,
Yeah.
I think that's probably not a placebo. But there
No.
we go. That's just my anecdotal. So, okay. Why do we talk about these as performance enhancing? Because nootropics and adaptogens, they're going to allow you to perform work at a higher level, aren't they? As long as you
Yeah.
can focus there. Like I've taken modafinil and fucking started cleaning the kitchen because I noticed the corner was dirty and then lost like 3 hours of my life. Like, no, you know,
Oh God.
make sure your tasks are meticulously planned out and in front of you, and try not to get distracted.
Stuck into new ones. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, it can be used for productivity reasons. So
True.
I typically use it when I've got to drive like 10 hours
Yes.
straight,
Yeah.
and then I'll have to have a Valium to wind down and sleep.
Mm. Like a
Otherwise, I
hard
don't
wind
sleep.
down.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, while it's great to be productive and switched on for 16 straight hours, if you then can't sleep and recover,
No.
like
Yeah.
that's it. I mean, you're into super unsustainable territory here. So okay, yeah, maybe for occasional use, but not it's not sustainable, I don't think. Um, at least not like I can performance enhance every
Mm.
working day of the week or whatever. Um, we've got growth hormone, metformin potentially.
Yeah, I was going to say metformin. So far we've got testosterone, we've got
It's
GH, we've
quite the
got
anti-aging drug,
Tomsartan,
metformin.
metformin. Yeah.
Yeah, because of its antioxidant properties and because of its nutrient partitioning properties. But both of those can be achieved by not needing, and with lifestyle clients, not sure why you would need a heavy duty antioxidant going in. You're not taking shitloads of drugs. Um, and nutrient partitioning, well, if you're on point with your diet and you're maintaining a lean
Yeah.
thing, again, this is unnecessary. So then we do have digestive issues to consider there. And chronic use can mean chronic digestive issues. So
Do you rate it as an appetite suppressant?
No, I just would imagine it would increase appetite.
Okay.
Well, at the end of the day, why is your appetite high?
Mm,
Um, is also dictated by your blood sugar levels.
mm,
So if your blood sugar's low, drive to eat. If your blood sugar's in the fasted range, be able to eat. If your blood sugar's above the normal range, how you've recently eaten, you're not probably going to be finding hunger signaling coming until you approach or get back into the fasted range. So if you're taking something that's keeping you in the fasted range more of the day, because it improves your body's nutrient partitioning, I would imagine hunger would be more likely.
right.
That
Okay.
said, I've not had like, I took metformin one day, I was ravenous, and then I didn't take it and I wasn't hungry.
Yeah.
Like, to me, it makes no difference. So I think insulin would be a bit of a different matter. I have taken insulin while dieting before. I got savagely lean.
Really? How
Or
did you
anyone
feel?
that says you can't lose fat on insulin, just eat. Do you follow protein sparing modified fasting with DNP and Lantus?
Yeah, that's going to
You will
work, isn't
feel
it?
horrendous. You'll
Yes, I was going.
get fucking
You won't be.
puked.
You won't feel particularly good.
I was emaciated. I was that flat.
Really. What did you look
Literally,
like? Were you able to
because
fill out?
DNP fundamentally is chemical uncoupler and it's going to interact with glucose and just turn it into heat. It's literally the only thing that you can take that does just burn through like fat and also muscle,
Yes.
but because you've got nothing else to use. You literally cannot utilize glucose unless you eat enough of it, and you'll get really fucking hot. So don't do that because you'll die, because the LD50 is extremely low. So if you have been following a low carb diet and getting away with a certain dose of DMP and then you binge on carbs, the chance of death is it's quite high, right?
Yeah.
Or you might think, I tolerate DMP really well, I'll take more, then eat carbs. You're fucked. So,
Side note: is DNP a drug you would ever could consider in certain contexts, or
that has no place.
no? That's
Um,
that's my view.
I think it ruins physiques. I think it ruins gut
Okay.
health. Yeah, as I say, I've used it. It also makes you miserable, feel like shit, as you
Yeah.
would when you can't. I mean, how are you going to feel when you can't? So, gluconeogenesis, your body's going, and you're on protein sparing modified fasting, your body's going to convert some of the protein you're eating into glucose. It's going to work hard to do that, but it's going to do it because you need glucose. But if it does, the DMP gets to it, and the Lantus was driving that. So yeah. Now,
Happy
would I
days.
have got equally shredded just doing PSMF? Probably.
Yeah.
And I probably had better cognitive function.
Mm.
Now, it might not have happened quite as quickly, but anyway, don't do that.
We chase side effects, though, don't we? We chase a certain feeling. If I'm suffering, it must be better. I think it's.
I just felt like fucking death. I was getting peeled. So
So you sucked it up. But do you, so you're saying you wouldn't recommend DMP for a lifestyle client then?
I just don't think it has a place
No, no.
in the world, which is why it's banned. You
Yes.
know,
There's much better,
it's been
more
tried as a
sustainable
weight
options.
loss
Yeah.
drug. And anyway, what you don't need to now, semaglutide is fucking effective.
Yeah.
Looks like retatrutide is going to be as effective as you need. You know, like what, like you just stay on that, you'll never be fat.
Right.
All right.
Gosh.
These things now, they don't cover your well-being, right? Because that just means I can only eat like 3 mouthfuls of a cheeseburger twice a day. All right, it's still not elevating you. So you still want to obviously get your diet on point and
Yeah.
exercise and work out. Remember, weight loss, abstract of resistance training, means you'll lose a shit ton of muscle, and that's never
Yeah.
a good thing. So those drugs are actually fantastic but I would still advocate a whole foods diet, adequate protein and micronutrients and fiber, adequate healthy fats. Don't want to fuck your cholesterol, for cognitive function and cardiovascular health and so on. And resistance training. Now, that doesn't need to look like the hardest fucking session in your life,
Nope.
6 days a week, but a simple like powerlifting style push-pull leg split, or just going in and working out like 3 full body workouts, whatever, enough to maintain, which is not a lot of volume, assuming reasonable proximity to failure.
Yeah.
So
It's a vector. It's got to be in a context as ever, hasn't it? So if you are going to go,
just the line is always going to be like, do resistance training, walk,
yeah,
eat well,
eat a whole foods diet, and then you may choose to add these things on top, which is going to enhance it. But if you haven't got that base in, again, how many guys do you see who are on TRT, TRT plus states TRT, who are still a million miles away from shape? And you only have to look at the older natural bodybuilders who were in the 40s and the 50s, Marshall Johnson, Jeff Alberts, people like that, who look absolutely incredible. And why do they look incredible? Well, it's not because hormonally they're optimized. They're probably in the bin, but they train their balls off and they've got a great diet.
I know. And I mean, Mike O'Hearn he's a lifetime natural,
Lifetime, yeah.
never touched any performance enhancing drugs, and he eats duck eggs
I
and
know.
8 meals a day, and he's strong as fuck. And
Do you know what the weirdest thing
towards a
about that
50.
is? He's got ties and links. He's either sponsored by or owns or has part ownership in a TRT clinic, but he personally doesn't take
Well, you don't need to, because his natural testosterone levels are clearly around about
a dinosaur's level.
it's clearly he naturally makes as much testosterone as an adult male gorilla.
So you're done, aren't you?
He's
You
fine.
know what I
You don't
mean?
need to. You need to.
I
Maybe
always feel sorry for guys like that who were from the 90s and the early, the 80s, the 90s, where everyone was natural. Everyone's natural, you know what I mean? And your problem is your
I
life for
mean,
so long.
risk of
When do you say,
imprisonment in the US is a pretty strong threat. So
yeah, well, and I understand it. I don't
if I'm
judge it
going to
too
the US,
harshly.
I think I'm saying I'm natural,
Yeah,
but
I'm not all
I'm
natty, bro.
fucking
Yeah,
around there.
yeah, exactly. What is it they used to say? I
We
took a cycle of pro hormones,
Yeah,
once, not
we
anymore, mate.
have. I was natural until I turned pro. We have a wonderful culture in the UK around this, good and bad, because of a lack of education. And I think what's really important is to actually put out good educational advice about the line that you should be taking with this stuff, even if you're taking it to a more extreme degree, which is that you keep your compounds strictly to testosterone, primobolan, masteron, and
Astron.
anavar. All right, those are the most benign. That you make use of growth hormone, because that'll allow you to make way more progress on lower amounts of steroids alone. That you absolutely take your prophylactic support, telmisartan, or any
Yeah.
angiotensin receptor blocker, blood pressure management, and then make sure that your diet's fucking on point and that your cardio is on point as well. That's the correct line, right?
And if you do those things, it'll work like magic. People won't believe you have those various measures in place, non-silly dosages, very sensible dosages, and you eat a whole foods good diet and you train hard and sleep. People will think you're blasting all sorts because you've
Yeah,
got the
I've had
basics in place.
many older clients transition on to a polypharmacy model from nothing because demand was there.
Yeah,
And I've worked with them for years on nutrition, on training. They know what to do. The progress from first exposure to 12 weeks later is unbelievable.
ludicrous. Yeah.
Unbelievable. And this is simply a polypharmacy TRT model.
Mm.
Sometimes there's a demand for thyroid support. that can also be a PD, but actually it's not really. It's just you've got shitty thyroid function, so it wants correcting. But that can yield fantastic well-being and body composition benefits just by virtue of correcting something that's broken. It's within the blood work. And that's it, really. We can talk about injectable L-carnitine, but then there's also issues surrounding that and thyroid function, administration.
Yes, that's a new thing
Pain in
that
the
I've
ass,
spotted coming up. Yeah.
like what does it really give you
I
versus
used to be I used to recommend it. I used to think highly of it, but then the more like kind of when you actually weigh up the pros and cons, kind of come away thinking,
it's too much of a pain in the ass,
literally.
and I don't think it's sufficiently beneficial to
Exactly.
justify that. Now, if I were elite trying to be king of elite,
Super
I
elite.
wouldn't leave that vector on the table.
No.
All right. Just like I would weigh every fucking gram of food,
Yeah.
just like I would track every fucking rep and weight. That is just leaning into a champion mentality. Outside of that, I don't think it's justifiable or necessary. So yeah, I'd probably leave that one in this context. So yeah, and creatine.
Yeah.
Maybe your himbean, actually. This is one
I,
that
I was going to say,
depends on your tolerance, but helps with libido and sexual function, helps with fat mobilization. Again, if you're taking advantage of sort of morning fasting, which
how would you dose your him by, and what would your range be if minimal effective to max your go to?
yeah, so it's like 1 milligram per kilogram would be a
Okay.
maximum dose. I think something like that. So what would that put?
What do you tend
No,
to find people do best on?
I've got that wrong because I take myself as a maximum of 125 key. It'd be a maximum of 25 milligrams. That's so you'd be 20 milligrams for 100 kilos. So it's 0.2
Okay.
milligrams per kilogram.
A
Sorry.
kilogram. Okay.
Um, so might start seeing benefits at like 5 milligram.
Yeah.
10, I like 10. I think 10 is quite
10's
sustainable
good.
for a male.
Okay.
Yeah, for a female, maybe 5. But again, if it causes you anxiety issues or headaches, doesn't feel good, it's just a tolerance thing. But yeah, that could absolutely be kind of kept in there.
Would you pair that with caffeine, maybe first thing fasted? Would that support it or
caffeine is a fantastic ergogenic aid anyway,
yes?
right? But there's arguments for not having caffeine when you wake up.
I've never lived
But it
by
is an
those.
effective fat mobilizing tool, and the majority of us do have it when we wake up. So yes, growth hormone in place before bed, and then on waking, fasting through the morning, which we know fasting anyway is great, with some caffeine, with some yohimbine, with some moderate, we go for a good walk,
Yeah.
do some housework,
Yeah. I do
maybe
housework and weighted vest. Yeah.
maybe around 4 hours fasting, 4 to 6, something like that, and then you have your first meal. Now it's not going to work on higher food quantities. It's not really any point while you're in a calorie surplus to spend that long fasting, because it's just going to truncate your eating window.
Yes.
And remember, with your growth hormone before bed, and that's pretty much what's driving the majority of your fat mobilization. In the morning, it's just starting to tick up. You've probably completed most of your morning activity before that growth hormone really peaks.
Yes.
But it is
Yes.
peaking. So you've obviously, and then you've got the overnight growth hormone kind of maybe tapering down. So it's just good to kind of overlay those peaks and have nice stability through the day.
Mm. So it's quite a simple, effective model, though, isn't it? Like you don't need to get overcomplicated with this stuff. You don't need to, and the idea behind the polypharmacy model is that you don't need to ramp up any one pathway too strongly. You're having various things in place in order to give a quality output, basically.
Yeah, I mean, that's what Victor Black originally
Yes.
sort of proposed, was that rather than just cranking gear alone and taking the, you know, the deleterious health outcomes, that you could, well, the reason why telmisartan's the best choice of angiotensin receptor blockers is it also works on a vector of hypertrophy.
Okay.
So it's kind of like, okay, why not then? Like, why
Brilliant.
make another one? Well, maybe if you don't respond to telmisartan, which some people don't, in terms of blood pressure management. But yeah, it's quite simplistic in a way, but it just wasn't really thought about or considered before, in my opinion, to take growth hormone alongside your anabolics, alongside some prophylactics, and actually find that you made about as much progress as you can possibly make on far less steroids.
Yes. Yes. Which, of course, are the most deleterious to health.
Yeah. Does more gear mean more progress? All right. There has to be substrate, right? There has to be a calorie surplus, right? And there has to be muscle tissue breakdown. And there has to be adequate amount of time to repair. So it's like, let's say that your training is optimal. All right. We don't really know what that looks like on an individual level. So it's probably not quite, but if you're experienced, it's probably pretty close. Okay, my training's optimal. How much protein do you take? We kind of know that there's a sort of like an upper limit, or so there's a necessary amount of protein to maximize muscle protein synthesis. You know, adequate substrate from carbohydrates, adequate healthy fats. And then, like, is your digestion good enough to process all of that food? You know, so we know that digestive inflammation is part of that circle of metabolic diseases. Yes. So we got inflammation, we've got insulin resistance, type 2 diabetes and obesity, and we've got heart disease and certain types of cancers. All right. But what drives that kind of wheel seems to be chronic inflammation. So we know that chronic inflammation, be that digestive inflammation, is going to be like a limiting factor. So, okay, you've got perfect digestion, perfect sleep, perfectly managed training and recovery, and perfect nutrition. You're getting, like, that's the maximum amount that you can grow muscle.
Yes.
All right. And I don't know how much gear you would be on. You would need to be on with that, but it would be the minimum amount, right, that you could necessarily. You're probably always going to overshoot it because it's kind of made that way. But when you're at that point and you're on 1 gram of gear, say, you took 2 grams, you probably wouldn't put on any more muscle mass any more quickly. Right,
yes.
You continue growing at the same rate. 3 grams a year might even go backwards because of the stress on the body.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
So you could be like, okay, well, look, I don't really see any more rapid improvements at 2 grams, so I'm just going to take 1.
Yeah.
All right, because I did notice the difference between 0.5 gram and 1.
Yes.
All right, and you might be like, I didn't notice a difference between 0.5 gram and 1. So just 0.5 grams, I'm golden. As long as I'm ticking all of these other boxes. On the other end of the spectrum, what we see in sort of lifestyle use is weekend drinking and recreational drug use.
Yeah.
Very poor diet, very poor training. And steroids then are almost used as a band-aid to look half decent.
Yeah.
So it's now,
and those dosages are pushed high in order to mask that. Yeah.
These are the guys going to be having, like a heart attack. That for me is steroid abuse rather than use, because it's like, how many different ways are you going to try and fuck your body this week?
Yeah.
Every which way.
How are you going to add stress to your body? Which methodology are you picking today? Yeah.
Cocaethanol, stress on the liver, cocaine and alcohol. It's like the most toxic thing for your liver.
Jesus.
Let's chuck down some orals. What do we
Yeah,
want?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like D-balls, anadrols, something nice and hepatotoxic. We'll throw that
Yeah,
on.
yeah.
Make sure that our liver toxicity is pretty high on a consistent basis, but just
You need to top it up, don't you?
really
You know?
spikes at the weekend. But make sure neurotoxicity is really high as well by
Yeah,
combining
yeah, yeah, yeah.
alone with recreational drugs whilst cutting. Obviously, we switch to nandrolone while bulking, and it's like, uh,
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I mean, it's
And no goals behind any of that either. So
yeah,
you can,
and it's look, guys, like if you're listening to this and that's what your lifestyle looks like first of all, I mean, there's lifestyle issues to address, but in terms of the gear, just take a bit of test and just leave it there. All right. Because you're not going to get more out of anything other than fucking mental health issues and more health
quicker death.
issues.
Yeah.
All right. Like if your week involves partying at the weekend and your diet's like shit, and you train 3, 4 times a week and it's not even that quality training, be honest with yourself. Like you'll have listened to guys talk about what quality training looks like. Like you just go in there and without a plan and just
That's it. Yeah.
train. It, even if you get a sweat on, man, like it's not enough to make up for the limiting factors. So 200 milligram of testosterone will just do that, and then fucking chill on everything else would be ideal. But fucking visual one thing is like um, trenbolone and nandrolone are fucking you up in many different ways, and you'll feel better even if you don't change your lifestyle, and you'll make the same amount of progress, probably live longer.
Do you know the number of times I hear Trembolone, and invert the quote, Trembolone or Nandrolone doesn't affect me. And I think it's that funny thing where when people are in the middle of something, they don't realize how much it's fucking them until they come off it and they go, "Whoa, what a difference!" But when you're in it, you can't spot it.
But what's the impact of chronic neurotoxicity over time? Early cognitive decline. So do I am I intentionally here setting myself up for dementia,
Yes.
Alzheimer's in my late 50s?
Yeah.
All right. I know this is not the behavior. We're not describing an individual who's really thinking about their future here. All right. They might have got their head buried in the sand, but if you think you don't experience side effects from trembolone and nandrolone just because you don't feel them acutely, and you probably are, as Alex said, like you just don't you don't realize how bad you're feeling, or that those drugs are making you feel that way, anxious, irritable, depressed, etc. And also prone to do. I mean, they put the chimpanzee in the driving seat, right? So it's
Yeah.
like you're running around with a dog with two dicks. Come on,
Yeah.
which causes problems. So, you know, at the end of the day, with this stuff, is like you're looking at long-term damage as well. And it will come up on you, and you'll think, why the fuck did I do that?
Yeah.
Look, I got skin cancer, and prior to that, my sunbed use was at an all-time high. It was the pandemic. There wasn't much else to do. I was in like an 8-month bodybuilding prep trying to get on stage. Shows kept getting moved left, right, and center. I was staying in shape, hanging on for a show. I've got in shape. I can hang on 2 more weeks. Oh, and 2 more weeks, and 2 more weeks. It's fuck all to do except train at home, walk, and go to the solarium on the corner, and a 10 in 10. I got back from my shows. What the fuck is this big black thing in the middle of my erectors? And I was lucky to have great healthcare. So got removed by the dermatologist. She didn't like the look of it one bit. Came back, they told me it was malignant. Shit my pants and had a whole fucking what am I doing with my life, kind of moment. Really pulled back. And I pulled out preps and everything for the rest of the year. And have had a lengthy health phase. And of course, I stopped all sun exposure. So now I'm like Caucasian dry. I was really worried about my tan at the last show, like how it was going to go on, but it looked fantastic. The
You look
girls
great. I thought your
get
tan was
bronze. Look,
brilliant.
I thought I had the best tan.
Yes, I thought your tan looked really, really good.
Yeah, yeah. And they gave me special attention. I got 2 tans in the morning. Yeah, that's what you get for having big biceps and blue eyes
Well,
and
that's it, isn't it? You see.
wearing a small child's superhero sock over your dick. It's the children's sizes that gets me with that. It's just you just get this tiny little sock, and do you know what? Struggle to fill it. It's fucking cold in there.
Oh, it's these little things in life, isn't it? Keep you entertained, keep
Yeah.
you smiling.
Is that anyway? The point is, like, sometimes you can be burying your head in the sand
Yeah.
about like these long-term health costs, and then I tell you what, you fucking go, it wasn't worth it. It wasn't
You'll
worth it.
always say
Having a
that. Yeah.
tan for five
Yeah.
years wasn't worth it.
No.
All
No.
right, now I'm untanned and I cannot be tanned. It's been very easy to accept, and that's that. I'm just a very white guy now.
Yeah.
It's
It's
fine.
interesting though, isn't it? And it's again this idea of, I don't know, Tren or Nandrolone, it doesn't affect me, even if the body holds up, even if it doesn't show up on blood work and stuff like, you won't notice necessarily the cognitive decline. You won't.
But well, I mean, there will be decline, like cellular aging.
Oh, it will
All
happen.
right, kidney
Yeah.
function,
Yeah.
cardiovascular function. It is happening now.
Mm,
Is it going to kill you before something else kills you? Like, what's
yeah.
going to catch up with you first?
Yes,
You
that's the yeah.
know, but it's diminishing you every
Mm,
exposure. Now, we try as bodybuilders, if we're smart, to offset that cellular aging, you know, stress on the organs and so on. We try to mitigate it as much as possible to have a long career and be healthy after our careers. All right. So that's done with a little bit of intelligence, I suppose, but we're aware of the risks. There's a risk to reward. And if you don't have the genetics to push it, work capacity, capacity for monotony, capacity to eat,
mm,
there's many, many genetic components, capacity to recover. If you don't have the genetic set, and you'll know very quickly, then it's not worth trying to push. Even if you can somehow get a pro card, this brings you nothing other than pro card,
yeah.
right? So it's not going to make you feel happy, and it's not going to lead you to financial success. All right, you'd have been better putting all of that time and energy into your physique with a moderate amount of gear, but focusing on whatever business endeavor was what you wanted to do in fitness. All right, because if you think that you're going to get paid just to be a bodybuilder, it's just not it's not going to happen.
I'm still waiting. My
So
check's in the post,
it's so
surely.
few people that that's going to be possible for, that it's not worth dedicating yourself to it.
No.
All right, past maybe 5 years of training and drug use. All right, so it takes years to become like an open pro
Mm,
anyway, and that's with the genetics. That's what I'm looking for, and I've been at this for 9 years now, and I've moved from 95 kg to 100. What was I on stage? 265. I don't know. What's that? 115 kg, something like
yeah, I
that.
think something like that. Yeah.
Right. So stage weight,
Takes time. Yeah.
20 kg in 9 years. And I need maybe another 10 kg, I think, to be competitive as a pro. So, and yeah, and I have a certain look, don't I?
Mm,
It's not the normal open pro look. So, I'm giving myself 5 years to be a competitive open pro, and maybe 2, 3 years to look at getting a pro card in the IFBB Pro League. Okay. I'm think, like, I believe in myself. And that's a goal of mine. And I've got all the other genetic attributes, and I really like doing it. Um, if you train for 5 years and you don't have the structure, you don't have good amount of muscle mass, you've ticked every box, you've done everything to the nth degree, it might be worth sort of just paring down that lifestyle a little bit, pursue happiness for a year, but work on some other aspects within that fitness spectrum, whether that's social media, turning out content, online coaching business, personal training, whatever, something that allows you to be in that space and enjoy it and enjoy the bodybuilding lifestyle, be happy, but have a bit more in your life because of the sacrifices necessary to be elite. They just require you to want to live your life a certain way. So that's okay. That's a choice. If you want to live your life that way, and that's how you're happiest, and even if you don't have the genetics, then do it and compete and enjoy amateur shows and be a bodybuilder. I'm not saying anything against that. I'm just saying that if you are kind of cranking drugs and sacrifice left, right, and center, and just doing everything you can to be the best in the world, you don't have the genetics for I'm just trying to say it's so genetic, this sport, that you'll know that you have the genetics early on. And if you're living in a pipe dream of, as long as I keep suffering, as long as I keep grinding, as long as I stay in poverty, it'll all be all right because I'll win a pro card and then I'll get a contract and then I'll just be paid to be a bodybuilder. I'll just go on a limb. Nobody is listening to this podcast that's true for.
No. There's a level of delusion, I think, amongst some people where they think that's going to magically happen.
It's misunderstanding that pros get there because of gear use. So all you have to do is use loads of gear. And then
that's the only difference.
I'm going to tick all those boxes and I'm going to take all the gear and I'm going to do whatever it takes. That won't be enough in the majority of cases because it's the same in elite sport,
Yeah. Well, I think I've mentioned
worker in the room won't be better than a genetically gifted individual who does fuck all.
Yeah.
Now,
I think I mentioned it. The other one was
quite genetically gifted and is the hardest worker in the room might beat the genetically gifted who are lazy. That is also true. So where you are on the spectrum, I'm trying to work my hardest. I know I'm not the most genetically gifted, and I think I can get there through a combination of hard work and my genetics.
I think it's like the 7-foot tall basketball player. People will readily accept that they don't have to be particularly, athletic. They're 7 feet tall. They can just freaking get the ball and dunk it without doing a lot. And people will look at that. And I as a 5'8", 5'8" guy, will look at that and go, he's going to be better at the basketball than me. And that's the end of the argument. But for some reason in bodybuilding, it's like that sort of mentality of, I don't know, Samson Dowder looks like that, so I can look like that. It's like, no, he's just the 7-foot basketball player in bodybuilding form. You'll never be that. He is like a specimen. You are not, Alex,
Yeah. And that'll look like that at, the sort of bodybuilding weights that are thrown around. These guys are put together a certain way. It's a structural way. Muscle sits a certain way. So they're often not as heavy as you.
No.
They just got that structure. That they look massive. It's quite interesting, isn't it, to meet bodybuilders in real life and or see them compared to other bodybuilders on stage, compared to maybe their Instagram photos. He looks so complete. He looks phenomenal. I'm like, oh, but that guy that's 5 inches taller and who's equally complete just pisses all over him.
Yes. Yeah.
Or even less complete sometimes and less conditioned. So, it's a funny old sport. And I just think that, when we're talking about lifestyle, I think it's probably best to just separate bodybuilding and competitive bodybuilding. Bodybuilding is the most popular sport on the planet. A lot of people just don't even call it bodybuilding, but you going in the gym, trying to shape your body with resistance training are a bodybuilder. You having your protein shake religiously after you work out with weights are a bodybuilder.
Yeah.
You're living that lifestyle to some degree. Yes, there are extremes, and yes, some people will look extreme, but the majority of the population will just feel good and have fun doing it. And yeah, they'll be able to shape their body to their desired aesthetic to some degree, as long as their desired aesthetic isn't beyond their genetic potential.
Mutant like, yeah.
All right.
I
How
mean,
long before I look like Ronnie Coleman?
yeah.
I don't know.
I've
You're a 5 foot. You're a 5 foot 11, 11 stone, liver puddling, white 17-year-old.
yeah,
So I'm going to say never on a number of levels. I tell you who you'll look like. You. This
yeah.
is the only
A
truth.
really good version of you.
The
That's
best
it.
possible, you work to be the best possible version of you, and inevitably you start to decline with age. That's
Yeah.
going to be
But
true.
here's the interesting thing about that. I'm 43 now, and I'm sure in some ways I'm declining. But and again, it's not about ego or about I'd never really I'm not a competitive person like that. What's interesting though is a lot of 43-year-old guys my age, because of habits, the downslide's massive. So by sheer default, by simply maintaining a version of what you had, you look great because everyone else is getting hammered, dominoes, all the rest of it.
If you're into this stuff, you're going to get better for a long time.
Yes,
Like I have to seek out ways of improving. My body changes, I age, and so on. How can I keep improving? I have to like kind of keep my relevance on point, keep my education on point. Um, you can keep progressing for a long, long time, and you can maintain for a long, long time, and you can be the best fucking looking 60-year-old,
yeah,
within your demographic. Are you going to look better than your 20-year-old self could have with all that work? Like this is just
yeah.
natural aging, but within your demographic, you can be the sexiest fucker.
Yeah, and that's always something to. Yeah, I think if you're always, it's a strange thing for me for people to chase youth. Like, I never want to go back. I don't want. You can look like 25. It's like, no, I'm sort of done with that.
But
But I really do like being the best version of me now.
everyone wants to feel like their young self did in terms of freedom, in terms of zest for life, in terms of physical energy levels, in terms of euphoric recall. Remember, you didn't feel good all the time, but you probably
Yes,
had a shit day a lot of the time. Because that's chasing a feeling, and we can give you that feeling with performance enhancing drugs.
yes,
All right. And we can give you the ability to shape your body with performance enhancing drugs that you could not do naturally. Um, Everybody wants to take back all of their experience. They want their innocence, but they also want to apply the experience that they have to everything that came up past that point of innocence.
yes.
Right. And so, turn back the clock, birth with caveats. So we have
Yeah,
it
yeah, yeah. But
now
and
and
yeah,
then.
I'll keep this. I'll take that. I won't have that happen, but I'll have more of
That was
that.
a
Yeah, it's
great
like cool. I
conversation.
like
What
that.
would you tell your younger self? It's a really great conversation. And what makes us is the sum of our experiences, doesn't it? And we don't know. We don't know what's good for us and what's bad for us. Like what experience? So I hate this experience right now. I wish I'd never gone through it. Da, da. But what that makes you into, I had a friend, and it was really he was really wise in many ways, but he was just down to earth. And he had tried to kill himself at the age of 20 over a woman. She'd left him. And he's failed. He fucked his liver up. He took loads of paracetamol. It's a very painful and stupid way to try and kill yourself. His words. So he met her like 20, 25 years later on.
All right.
She was pushing. She had like 3 kids around her that were like screaming,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
from his perception, just like the worst behaved kids he'd ever seen.
Yeah.
And he said she was like the size of a house, so she'd obviously gained a lot of weight. And he said hello, and she smiled, and he said she had no teeth. And he walked away from that thinking, fucking hell, I tried to kill myself for her. Clearly, he no longer was deeply in love with her, and clearly, from his story, he no longer found her attractive. In
Under
fact,
attractive either. Yeah.
he felt that a life with that would be nightmarish. So it's
Dodged a bullet.
interesting. It was an
Yeah,
interesting
well,
story.
this is it. Sometimes the worst, our worst experiences on reflection could be the best thing that ever happened. Like at the time, you're like, God, no, not this, not this. You look back 10 years later, you think, thank God for that event. But at the time, it was like a knife in the heart.
Well, there's an opportunity to grow out of trauma,
Yeah.
but there's also that aspect of trauma left unaddressed
Yes.
that can affect you adversely. So, yeah, I don't know how we've got onto
We always do, mate.
like trauma and so on from this, but
I wouldn't tell my younger self anything. I think that would, it's almost like when you watch those time travel movies and they're like, you can't meet your younger self because it's like, oh, I just got to let him fuck up and do his thing because, again, not that there's anything inherently special about me, but young Alex had to do all that stuff and get all those bricks in the head to be this Alex.
yeah.
Without those bricks in the head, I wouldn't be here.
When I was younger, I had a strong work ethic. I was also entitled, arrogant. My value set was kind of fucked up, particularly if I drank.
Mm,
Like I don't. There's a period of my youth where I don't respect my younger self.
no.
Um, so let's say I went back in time and gave my younger self a winning lottery numbers, financial freedom for life. This guy
Oh,
now would be such a fucking dick. All
yeah,
right.
yeah,
Because having
that's
to
it.
work, having to graft, having to grow, you know, has
I think
got
there's some, yeah,
has
I
led
think,
to me being a person that mostly I respect, mostly I'm proud of myself, and
yeah,
mostly I can love myself. Whereas my younger self hated himself.
I think there's something about going through your life and needing to be humbled, like, like, and maybe it's a male thing. And I'm not that I was overly arrogant when I was young, but just that sort of, oh, I haven't got it all together yet. Like when life proper brings you to your knees
I
and
think,
you get good again, you rebuild again.
I think men in particular probably need to be humbled to grow. I
Yeah,
think it's one of our,
I
our
think there's a
driving
degree of truth in that.
catalysts of growth.
Yeah, is realizing you're not quite where you're at, and that being humbled and broken down. The thing is about being broken down is you get to reform and rebuild like the T1000. But hopefully you come back, maybe you come back better. Every time you get broken down, if your heart's in the right place and there's a will, there's the chance to come back the better version of you.
Yeah, agreed.
Chance.
Agreed. You got to have a growth mindset.
You do,
So
man.
you got to be willing to be introspective and do the work.
That's yeah. I agree with that. Reflect on your actions, but also know when to stop reflecting as well, because I think that can become quite a habit that's very useful. But again, that in itself left unchecked, if you permanently reflect on everything you do, or like, oh, should I have said that? What was my tone like there? It's like kind of how did my? It's like, dude, just be yourself as well.
Daily inventory really is, do I feel bad about anything I did today?
Yeah. Yes.
And if I did, how do I make amends for that immediately?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
that it's as simple as that. Did I deviate from my own value set or not? Whether that's intentional or not.
Yeah. Take stock, reflect, and
Yeah.
sort of build from
And
there.
and
Yeah.
then
No,
take
with that.
action and then move on and try not to
Yes.
do it again.
Yeah, try.
Oh, come
Doesn't
on,
always work, does it?
we're human. We're human.
Yes, we are.
Yeah. So, guys, in terms of performance enhancing drugs and testosterone replacement therapy in lifestyle males, sustainable use, absolute efficacy, absolutely a strong argument for it across most contexts, I would say. Always used with sort of consideration, thought, and education behind it. Um, Absolutely seeking medical professionals to explore those things. Generally, you're going to get better outcomes with private healthcare. That's just the nature of the NHS. But you can explore those things. You can have a blood panel. You can see what your opportunities are, and you can optimize and correct those from there. And you can go a little bit further than that as well. But going too much further than that won't yield any better outcomes, because there are no outcomes to take. It'll just have increasing side effects and the opposite effect of what you want. So it's just about finding a sweet spot for you, and being able to stay there, and regular blood work to check on your status and make any adjustments that are necessary for you to continue to thrive.
Yeah, I go on board with all that. Like you say, pushing too far. If the expectation is to set up a lifestyle where you have drive, spring in your step, so to speak, pushing things past a certain point will actually undo that. There'll be a sweet spot where you can live.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And we'll wrap it up there, because that is a good lengthy podcast. Any questions, guys, drop them into the comments. You can also follow us on Instagram. You can talk to us. You can message us on Instagram. But please, if you like the episode, click the like button. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell, and it'll tell you when new episodes are uploaded. And share as well if you think anybody else will enjoy a listen. But guys, thank you for listening, and we will be back next week.